welcome to Donington Park for round 3 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship. If you like the roar of GTs and a sight of supercars, then you've come to the right place. The championship boasts some mouth-watering cars from Ferraris, Porsches and Audis, to name but a few. Let's head to the paddock to find out more about these high-performance race cars.
Based on a 2009 RSR, same factory aero, GT2, GT3 spec. The only difference is, of course, it runs a turbo engine, whereas the Porsche standard factory cars run an aspirated engine. So it runs all the setup data and suspension of a factory GT model, yeah. It's the Metzger-based Porsche flat 6 engine, and it's 3.6 at the moment. Power output is somewhere in the region of about, I would say, somewhere around 380 to 420 horsepower. You know, it's a fully mappable Motec system. It's a paddle shift car. So, you know, all the ingredients are there to develop it, and that's what we like, is the freedom and the development within Britcar. It's a fantastic series, yeah.
Chevron have an amazing history of racing. We're running the Mark 1 GR8s, which we've had for about 4 or 5 years now. We've done a few adaptations to it, but it's been a really good car for racing. But we've just been developing it and changing engines, just for more the endurance racing type, so it lasts a little bit longer really. It's a space frame chassis with the fiberglass bodywork on it. It's running a JFR gearbox with a Nissan VQ 3.5 litre engine out of it. So yeah, it's running about 270 horsepower, it's quite low. It weighs 819 kilos, so the power to weight ratio on it is pretty good. It's pretty good.
We've got 2 cars that are running in Ferrari Challenge spec with our GTC modification kits on it, which we've done for Britcar and endurance racing in general. And then we've got a standard GT3 homologated car, which runs to a bit of a higher specification than the standard challenge cars. But primarily they're basically the same chassis. The biggest thing really with a GT3 car is it's wider. To accommodate the bigger wheels, they've made the car wider. So you've got some bigger wheel arch extensions. If you look on the side of the car, you'll see the car is actually physically wider than the challenge car. Hence, you've got more rubber on the road. More rubber on the road, generally you've got more grip. That's the number one difference between the 2 cars. And because of that, you can have a physically wider wing, you can have physically wider front aeros, front splitter, and everything's just a bit wider, a bit more aggressive than the challenge car. However, the latest iteration of these challenge cars, which we design and build as well, has very much taken some of that knowledge, and we also have a very similar system, ducting out at the front here, and with rear diffusers and everything, all designed to give a little bit more downforce on the car. Other main differences really are the gearboxes. The challenge car runs on the standard road gearbox, believe it or not, which is a dual clutch system with a difference on the ratios on 5th, 6th and 7th, but apart from that it's a standard gearbox. It weighs 160 kilos, so it's a fairly heavy kit, but it's instantaneous gear selection, it's 7-speed, it's a brilliant system. However, the race car, the GT3 car, actually has a Hewland race gearbox on it. It's only 6-speed, but shorter ratios. And the biggest difference is the weight. They only weigh 60 kilos. This car, you've got 160 kilos over the rear axle. This car, you've got 60 kilos over the rear axle. Apart from that, you'd be surprised how close they are, actually. The engines are fairly similar. They're both road car production-based engines, even the GT3 car. The ECUs are a lot more modified on the GT car, and the timing is beefed up a little bit. But essentially, the architecture is standard road car trim. In the challenge car, it really is a road car engine. It's an amazing engine. To be able to put an engine in a race car and go and do this to it is incredible. And we are actually now within 3 seconds on a challenge car to the GT3 car in real out-and-out qualifying trim. So, which is quite incredible for a car that is a road car.
Undeniably, there are some awe-inspiring GT cars on the grid, but the real appeal of Britcar lies in its sheer diversity. The multi-class structure means that a wide range of cars can race and compete for the overall championship title. On one hand, you've got high-spec GT cars, and on the other, much more production-based machinery, BMWs, Ginettas, Hondas, and even Minis. Long races, single-day events and shared drives, all combining to provide good value track time.
So far, this year's championship has given us plenty to talk about. Dramatic weather at Silverstone, a close finish at Snetterton, 2 different winners, and already 5 different teams have made it up into the podium. So the season is shaping up nicely and the championship is as competitive as it's ever been. Let's catch up with some of the drivers ahead of today's 3-hour race.
My kind of background this year, I'm racing the Mini Challenge with Accelerate Motorsport. So this is kind of a one-off round for me, but I know the team well. We've had some good results before, and to be back in the Chevron's brilliant. It's just learning the car, rear-wheel drive instead of front-wheel drive, so again, just sort of getting my mind back into that. And yeah, we hope to qualify, and I think we'll be up there. Confident, you know, top 3 at least, so all to play for, and can't wait to get back out.
Another driver who interchanges between saloon car racing and GTs is Darrell Wilson. When he's not competing in the Dunlop Endurance Championship, Darrell races a VW Sirocco in both the VW Cup and the VAG Trophy. But following a couple of, let's say, challenging weekends in saloons, he's probably glad to get back behind the wheel of the Porsche.
At Brands in the VAG Trophy, I was running in P1 and I got tagged from behind and hit the wall at 96 miles an hour. And yeah, that was the end of my weekend. So we had 2 weeks to repair the car. It was a VW Sirocco. And we repaired it, and then I went out last weekend, qualified P3. And I managed to roll it on the 3rd lap, going through the chicane and hitting the curb a bit too hard, and then it ended up upside down. So we're in a good thing. We're in a good weekend, and a good 2 weeks. I managed to get it out for the 3rd race. And then I was running in P5, and then another car crashed into me, and that was another incident what happened. So yeah, I had 3 bad looks really, and now we're back here with the Porsche, and hopefully I'll have a good weekend this weekend.
And if you think Darrell's had some hard luck, how about this? Farid Ali has flown all the way from Canada to race this weekend. Only it hasn't exactly been going according to plan.
It has been a very traumatic weekend. Came over from Toronto to do the first race of Britcar. Did it last season in the Boxster that you see behind me, and the plan A was to use a new Cayman GT4 Club Sport for the rest of the season, which I was in for the first time last weekend. But as you all know in motorsports, sometimes plan A doesn't work out. And the Craner curve saw to that. I unfortunately had an off there at the worst part of the circuit and put it into the tire wall and really folded in the front of the car. And I was fine, fortunately, thanks to the marshal's expert help. But the car is definitely not raceable this weekend. So the team got the Boxster out of the truck, and we completed yesterday's track day. And just as we were going into the garage, we had a radiator leak. And that's what the boys are working on right now. So we missed practice, missed qualifying, had to work something out with the stewards, who've been very accommodated, as have the organizers. They really wanted to get out for the main race today, and hopefully we will.
But sadly for Farid, the bad luck would later continue when an oil breather fractured as he attempted to qualify out of session. His race already ran.
So who's going to start today's race from pole and who's going to have their work cut out from further down the grid? Earlier on today, a 30-minute qualifying session gave us all the answers. So back to Chris for a summary of the action.
In qualifying, the FF Corsa Ferrari of Callum Lockie and the Tockwith Motorsports Audi of Phil Hansen traded fastest laps during the first half of the session. Meanwhile, for Class 2 honours, there wasn't a great deal to choose between the two Ferrari 458 Challenge cars. The number 9 machine of Round 2 winners Mike and Anthony Wiles holding class pole, until Leighton Clark surged ahead with just 5 minutes to go. In Class 3, Round 1 winners Jacob Mathiasen and Steve Fressel had the edge in the Century Motorsport Ginetta, albeit just a tenth quicker than the Whitebridge Aston Martin of Jody Fannin and Chris Murphy. The Moss Motorsport BMW once again topped Class 4, while Alan James and new teammate Dan Wheeler proved that the Synchro Motorsport Honda is still the car to beat in Class 5. Meanwhile, after finishing second in the race at Snetterton last time out, the Renault RS01 of Nick Holden and Andrew McKenna claimed third on the grid.
It's quite busy out there. It's quite hard to find a bit of a gap to get a quick lap in, but we found one and put a 1:32 in. Quite pleased with that. And then we came in to see what everybody else was doing, really, trying to save some tyres for the race.
Callum Lockie and David Mason narrowly missed out on the top spot in the Ferrari, meaning that Silverstone winners Nigel Moore and Phil Hansen did just enough to put the Audi on pole for the first time this year.
Can't get any better, can you? Phil went out and did a great job to start off with. He put it on pole pretty much after a few laps, and then a few laps from the end we got pipped. Last lap managed to get a good flyer in and about 2-3 tenths on pole, so yeah, good start.
Time for a quick break now, but we'll be right back with race highlights.
Welcome back to Donington Park. Before the break, we learned about some of the fantastic cars in action today, spoke to some of the drivers and took a look back at the qualifying session. But now it's time to go racing. Here's Chris Hartley to talk you through round 3 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship.
Here's the view on board with Anthony Wiles, who's going to be starting 5th in the bright yellow number 9 Ferrari winners of the last round at Snetterton. Here they come then round the final corner, ready for the rolling start, and 3 hours of action here at Donington Park. To the left of the picture, the Audi, Tockwith Motorsports and Nigel Moore, but a better start for Callum Lockie here in the bright red Ferrari. He's going to get the lead of the race, or is he? Because darting out of his slipstream and on the brakes into turn 1 at Redgate goes Nigel Moore. So Nigel snatches the lead back here. Callum Lockie is in second place. Then it's the dark blue Ferrari of Leighton Clark in third, on board with Jody Fanning, who's about to go ahead of his class rival there, Jacob Mathiasen, to gain 6th position. So the Aston Martin moving ahead of the Ginetta. Into the old hairpin for the first time, so the Audi leads a trio of Ferrari 458s. Nick Holden in the black Renault RS01 has dropped down to 5th position, and up to 4th this man, Anthony Wiles, in the FF Course Run Ferrari, making his way up through McLean's for the first time in this race. His main battle is going to be with Leighton Clark, because they're both Class 2 Ferraris. Ian Lawson on board with him, so he's got into the race, but that car is going very slowly indeed, spluttering its way, I'm afraid, down through the Craner curve. Some more trouble for the ING Sport team. Out of the S's and pushing hard here, Nigel Moore, who has really started to pull away already from Callum Lockie in the Ferrari 458. Third place is Leighton Clark then, as they accelerate up towards the end of the lap. On board with Darrell Wilson in the Porsche Shop 911. He and teammate Ian Heward have had a very good start to the season so far, and going on the attack here to move ahead of the Honda Civic, and Darrell gains a place. So at the end of the first lap of the race, it's the Audi from Tockwith Motorsports that leads by almost 2 seconds here from Callum Lockie. Leighton Clark is third. Anthony Wiles currently running in 4th place. Then it's Nick Holden in the Renault in 5th position, and then Class 3 leaders Jody Fannin and Whitebridge Motorsports in the Aston Martin. Jacob Mathiasson, the Danish driver, down 1 place to 7th position in the Century Motorsport run Ginetta. So here then is the Renault RS01 of Nick Holden, who was the runner-up in the championship last year, but driving a very different vehicle, the Ariel Atom. Was a couple of times a class winner last season. Here's the battle for Class 3 making its way into the old hairpin. There is Jacob Mathiasson in his first season of GT racing, his first season in that car and his first season racing in the UK. Doing a very good job so far, he and teammate Steve Fressel, championship front runners. You've just ridden with Darrell Wilson in the Porsche. He is now ahead of the Synchro Motorsport Honda Civic of Dan Wheeler and Alan James. That leads its class, though. Here is the overall race leader, though. Nigel Moore attacking the S's here, using all of the curbs, but staying within the track limits. Over the brow he goes. Downhill braking zone into the Melbourne Loop. And he really is growing the gap now over Callum Lockie there in the Ferrari. But it's worth bearing in mind that the Ferrari will have a much shorter minimum pit stop time because whether you finish in the top 3 in your class in the previous round affects how much time gets added on to your minimum pit stops. And Callum Lockie and David Mason didn't take part in the last round at Snetterton, so they'll have 20 seconds less every time they come into the pits. Anthony Wild's busy trying to fend off Nick Holden in the Renault RS01. We go back on board with Anthony making his way up towards the end of the lap. There are the top 2 in Class 3. There's a good battle going on here between the Lotus of Fabio Randaccio and John O'Brown in the Chevron GR8, also battling for Class 3 honours. Into the pits, I'm afraid, for Ian Lawson, so he's limped the BMW Z4 back. Either, I think, an electrical or maybe a gearbox-related problem for that car. So huge frustrations. That should be one of the quicker cars out there as we see a change of position here. That's just the back end of a move, and it's the Lotus now moving ahead down the Wheatcroft Straight of the Chevron. So those two go in a different order into Redgate Corner at the start of this lap. And just behind them, the Moss Motorsport BMW M3, which leads Class 4 currently. 3 drivers in that car. Tom Howard aboard now with his regular teammate Mike Moss, but they're joined this weekend by Darren Nelson, who finished on the podium in his Lamborghini Huracan and a very wet Silverstone at the start of the season. There is the Cuda Drinks Ginetta G50, new car for the team. Glenn Finn, former Castle Coombe racer, taking to the first stint, and he's going to hand over to Richard Burrows later on. There is Leighton Clark then attacking the chicane, being chased here by Anthony Wild. You go on board with him now, trying to chase down the former production touring car champion Leighton Clark, who is also a very experienced GT racer. There is now falling away a little bit from those Ferraris. Nick Holden in the Renault RS01. I know they've had a few glitches with the gear change on that car though this season, so that might be delaying them. As back out, about to rejoin the race several laps down, is Ian Lawson in the Z4. There is the second place car of Callum Lockie in the number 1 FF Course Ferrari, the car, the team which has won the last 2 Britcar championships. Still this battle raging on here between the Lotus and the Chevron, making their way out of the Melbourne Loop, climbing uphill now and about to attack the final corner. Could there be another change of position? We go on board with the class leader, which is still Jody Fanning, who was out qualified by Jacob Mathiasson's Ginetta this morning, but managed to get past him on the run into Redgate Corner at the start of the race. So tremendous battle between these two. They're both only just 22 years of age. Jody Fanning is already a British GT4 champion. Jacob Mathiasson, as I say, he's in his first season of UK racing, having raced in the Citroën DS Cup back in his native Denmark, but already proving to be a very quick learner here. So Jody Fanning being pushed hard in the Aston Martin, making his way down through the Craner curves. Only about half a second behind him is the Ginetta, and these two pulling away from the rest of the battles inside Class 3 now between the Lotus in particular and the Chevron of John O'Brown. Out of the old hairpin, climbing back uphill then through Schwanz up towards McLean's Corner. Smooth as you like there for Jody Fanning. About 8 seconds ahead of them, running in 5th place overall. Nick Holden in the Renault RS01. Andrew McKenna to take over from him later on. Working their way through the traffic then, the 2 Class 2 Ferraris battling for class position and for 3rd place overall. Still a great battle going on between them. No battles though for Nigel Moore, who's just getting on with the business of leading the race here. Nigel Moore and his teammate Phil Hanson looking for their 2nd win of the season, having taken the victory at Silverstone. Trying to build up though more than a 20-second advantage over this Ferrari, bearing in mind the difference in pit stop times that they will have. And talking of the pits, in comes the Chevron. This is too early for a scheduled stop. I'm afraid it looks like an issue for the Track Talk Run Chevron as John O'Brown brings in the car. Still leading Class 5, that is the Synchro Motorsport Honda of Dan Wheeler and Alan James. The Type R well clear of the Mini, which has got Aaron Steele behind the wheel at the moment, reigning MSV Formula 3 Cup champion and very, very experienced single-seater racer. Well, you've heard me mention pit stop penalties, and here is the series director to give you a bit more insight.
We didn't want people just running away with it as we had in previous years. So it's like British touring cars weight penalty, where you get a success ballast, but we do it with time as opposed to weight. So you get, for a win of class, you get 15 seconds added, second is 10 seconds added, and third is 5 seconds added. If you come fourth, you get 5 seconds off. Fifth is 10 seconds off. Anything lower than sixth is 15 seconds off. So it just sort of equals out the cars a little bit more as they go through, and they have to do that on all mandatory pit stops.
So that could all have a great levelling impact on the race once we get into the first round of pit stops. There is the Renault RS01, which might be a little bit easier on its fuel than the Ferraris as well. So that could be something that will come into play in the second half of the race. Look at this, absolutely nose to tail in the battle for Class 3 honours for 6th place overall. And Jacob Mathiasen almost getting alongside Jody Fanning now as they make their way down towards the S's. You go on board with Jody. Keep an eye on the mirrors, but I think he's got the right line for the corner. Yes, he's still got his nose in front, and under intense pressure, the Aston Martin just about staying clear of the Century Motorsport Ginetta. There on its own now in third place in class is the Lotus of Fabio Randaccio. His dad, Nick Randall, is going to take over for the second stint. Back out has gone the Track Talk Chevron, but that lost quite a bit of time in the pits, I'm afraid, with an issue. So there is the Moss Motorsport Tom Howard driven BMW, very quick car that, which has had great success, production championship winning car and team. And Darrell Wilson, who is running in Class 2 in the Porsche Shop Porsche, another driver who's relatively new to endurance racing, but doing a very good job. And he'll be joined by Ian Eward, who's a very experienced racer, ex-British touring car racer. And those two just keep on racking up the points and finishes this year, which is absolutely critical in endurance racing. Going very quickly now, trying to catch up the laps that it lost in the pits, is the BMW Z4 of Ian Lawson. And that's a Ferrari going slowly. It's Callum Lockie from second place. The car crawling up through Coppice Corner with half a lap to try and get back to the pits. Our first real drama of the race.
It's time for us to take a short break now, but we'll be right back with more from Donington in just a few minutes' time. Welcome back to Donington Park as we continue our coverage of round 3 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship. Back to our commentator, Chris Hartley.
So there is our race leader, Nigel Moore, in the Audi R8 LMS run by Topworth Motorsports. Well clear now of the rest of the pack, because just before the break we saw the number 1 Ferrari breaking down. So into second place now comes Leighton Clark in the number 44 Ferrari 458. Only a few seconds behind him, but dropping back slightly in the last few laps. That is Anthony Wilds in the number 9 Ferrari, also run by FF Course. So up into 4th place now will come Nick Holden in the black Renault, and just behind him there, but a lap down, are these two battling over 5th place overall and Class 3 honours. They've been nose to tail all the way through the race. Jody Fanning has been somehow able to keep that Aston Martin just clear of the Century Motorsport Ginetta of Jacob Mathiasen. The Danish driver has been alongside him, he's been right behind him, he's tried everything, but he just can't quite find a way past Jody Fanning, who is driving a brilliant defensive race here. So those two having a great tussle. That is the ING Sport BMW in for a driver change. That's trying to make up ground after its problems early in the race. And that's the TMS team, Topworth Motorsports, who I think are discussing fuel here, because the 3-hour race, they're not going to be able to just do one stop in this one. They're going to have to do at least 2, possibly 3 stops. So lots of the teams thinking about how to try and maintain their gaps, whilst also trying to look after their fuel strategies in this race. And that is the Lotus of Fabio Randaccio going very slowly, spluttering, I'm afraid, out of McLean's corner. So the Lotus looks like it's headed for the pits. Already in the pits, I'm afraid, is David Mason.
You just got out of the car. What happened out there?
Well, Callum had problems. He had wonderful lead and he was doing terrific. Just before he came in, the car started missing badly. Brought it in, handed it over to me. They checked it out and did their best. Took it out, and basically it would appear to me that it's a gearbox, but it could be mapping problems and everything. But sadly, I'm sure our race is run.
Well, a real shame for the defending champions who crashed out of race 1, didn't take part in race 2 as the car was repaired, and doesn't look like they're going to get much from race 3. FF Course have still got 2 Ferraris in the race, though. That is the Class 2 leading car, which was in second place overall. So Simon Atkinson takes over from Leighton Clark, and the overall race leaders are in around about 1 minute and 20 seconds clear of the rest of the field. So Nigel Moore is handing over to Phil Hanson. Picking up the lead will be Anthony Wilds in the Ferrari, but he's having a wild ride here. That's up at McLean's corner, and around he goes in the number 9 Ferrari on the grass. Luckily avoids any barrier contact. I think he spun to the inside of the circuit, so he gets it fired back up, drags it back onto the track, but that's going to be 10 or 11 seconds of time lost, I'm afraid, plus the tyres are going to be dirty, so he'll lead still, but yet to go into the pits, of course, and that's going to bring much closer to his tail now. Nick Holden in the Renault, so number 7 car. These are first and second, these two. The first of the cars not yet to pit, with the Audi having made its driver change. The Audi, though, was losing time. It was doing 1 minute 31s, low 131s. The last 5 or 6 laps, it's been in the 132s. So I think that's why they brought the car in perhaps earlier than expected. You can see Nigel Moore has got out of the car, look, checking the tyres here with the Dunlop engineers to make sure they can get the best setup for the middle part of the race. As well as being a very quick driver, Nigel is also very astute in the setup of the cars. We can hear now, though, from his team boss.
Still leading, we're happy. Might have gone out, pressure's too high, but we did push hard from the start, obviously. That's why we were where we were. So whether we push too hard at the start or whether slightly out of pressures, we'll wait and see. But we're happy with what's coming, and I think the fuel pressure problem sorted itself out.
So Tockwith Motorsport's not overly concerned. In, I'm afraid, to the garage this time is the Trap Talk Chevron. That's got a clutch slip issue, we're told. The other car that was battling for Class 3 honours, the Lotus, with a fuel pump problem. There's Mike Wilds then taking over from his son Anthony. A bit of grass to be cleared from the radiators. Look, after that trip, just on his way into the pits across the grass with the spin at McLean's corner. But Mike will take over the FF Course Ferrari now. That means that into the lead of the race for the time being is the only one of the front runners yet to pit. So Nick Holden in the Renault with good fuel economy here, making his way down through the Craner curves and onto the brakes into the old hairpin. Meanwhile, as Mike Wilds takes the Ferrari back out onto the track, Rachel has managed to catch up with Anthony Wilds about his little excursion.
What goes through your mind when something like that happens? You just have to stay focused on the job and just look ahead.
This is a family show, so I can't really yeah, it's just annoying. Having worked so hard to stay in second place and not let Leighton get too far ahead, and because I know my dad is, we were only 0.4 of a second difference, and there's a little bit of a gap between Simon and Leighton, so I was like, well, if I can stay at least keep him in eyesight, then we've got a chance. But I know Simon will get quicker because it's his first time in the car, so towards the end of the race I reckon it'll be very close between us.
I was going to say that the race is still young, so who knows?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And in the garage next door, FF Corsa have got the number 1 Ferrari going back out onto the circuit. So it's essentially going to be a test session, this. They're not going to pick up much in the way of results, but Callum Lockie takes the car back out onto the circuit. On board with Ian Heward in the Porsche Shop 911, looking for a Class 2 podium. Started out his racing career as a rally driver, in fact, before he moved on to touring cars and the Porsche Carrera Cup. Now, we've seen the Chevron in the garage. Let's find out more about the problem.
Things were going well for the first half hour. We were sitting third in class and tussling with the guy in 4th place, and then he came in complaining, saying that the clutch was starting to let go because it was giving us some harsh gear changes. So I think they're changing the clutch now. I mean, I haven't been out myself, so I'm a little bit disappointed just yet, but hey ho, you know, we'll should be able to get back out still and get some more times under our belt.
And he joined us back on track as the safety car comes out. The number 1 FF Course Ferrari of Callum Lockie having ground to a halt, having just left the pits. So safety car conditions, and this where some of the teams have only just made their pit stops for fuel. There is the Ginetta, which has been battling away with the Aston Martin for class honours, but they've had some issues with that car as well, some slight gearbox related issues which have dropped them back a little bit now. So Mike Wilds, who's only just been in the car for a few laps, the number 9 FF Course Ferrari, coming in for what will be a splash and dash. The Renault comes in as well. Now that's already had one stop not long ago. Andrew McKenna is in the car, but it comes in and takes the opportunity here to refuel, but you can only put 25 litres of fuel maximum during a safety car period. But what the hope is for these teams is that this will save them having to have another pit stop, an extra pit stop for fuel towards the end of the race. So they're all expecting one more stop, with the first drivers predominantly going to get back in. The Renault is going to get out ahead. That's actually now lapped the Ferrari. So second place, having stayed out longer, is the Renault. Third place is the 44 Ferrari, and the yellow number 9 Ferrari is in 4th position. There's the Porsche of Ian Heward coming up to be lapped by the more powerful race-leading car, Phil Hansen, the former kart racing champion, behind the wheel, having made his debut in that car at this circuit last year, and they picked up a podium en route to that as well. There is the 57 Moss Motorsport BMW. So Tom Howard, after another typically lightning-fast stint, gets out of the car. Darren Nelson, guesting for the team this weekend, is about to take over. Mike Moss, the team principal, will be in later on. And there is proof, if anyone needed, that Tom Howard has been pushing this car pretty hard during the first stint. So let's take stock of the race order. The Tockwith Audi leads the Holden Autosports, Renault by 52 seconds. Simon Atkinson is third and leading Class 2 in the 44 Ferrari, with Mike Wilds fourth overall. And we can hear now from Nick Holden.
We managed to pit under the safety car. We've still got at least one more to do. Maybe more. It depends on how Andy goes and his driving style compared to mine.
And how important is it to time the pit stops perfectly? How much of a difference can it make?
Well, I think you saw at Snetterton, it's a huge difference. You know, you get it, you nail it like Mike Wiles did an FF Corsa at Snetterton. It was perfect. They couldn't have done it any better. So yeah, quite jealous. And we have looked at it since. We've created a bit of software to try and improve where we're at. And so, well, we'll see. Yeah. If we run out of fuel, it might not work too well.
Well, look, fingers crossed and good luck, and hopefully we'll chat to you at the end.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Driver change for Synchro Motorsport. Alan James getting into the car of his trusted steed, the Civic Type R, with some new Dunlop slick tyres about to be put onto it as well. But a decent first stint from Dan Wheeler to lead his class. The Cuda Drinks team have brought their Ginetta in as well. New car for the team. They started the season with the Ginetta G40 up into the G50 now. New tyres for them as well onto the rears. Also some examination, I think, at the back of the car there. Maybe a slight cause for concern. Richard Burrows now about to get on board. Here's Chris Murphy then, relatively new to endurance racing, to car racing, the former quad racing champion. He's fifth overall. He now leads Class 3 from this man, Steve Fressel, in the Century Motorsport Ginetta, but he's much, much quicker, is Steve, and he's closing the gap, the time they lost when the car came in for an extra stop with gearbox problems. That now seems to be rectified. They're in seventh place overall. Leading Class 4 is the Mike Moss Motorsport BMW, with Darren Nelson enjoying his first time in the car. And after losing laps at the start of the race, this is the ING Sport BMW Z4, which is carefully, quietly and very quickly going about its business. So we had in the first stint Ian Lawson, the team boss. Ryan Lindsay has now taken over, and that car is back up to 8th place overall, and one of the quickest cars out there. This car with over 500 brake horsepower and can reach up to 170 miles an hour. Making his way down through Starkey Straight, on the way into the S's is Ryan Lindsay. Goes left, he goes right, and that car absolutely screaming along at the moment, so they could still get a decent result out of this. There is the number 44 Ferrari, Simon Atkinson, now on board. He is about a minute clear of the ex-Formula 1 racer Mike Wilds. Here is Mike with the onboard camera. So they are running in third and fourth positions, but battling over Class 2. Mike may be in his 70s now, but he's still mightily quick, and he's about a second a lap quicker than the man he's chasing down. Now, this looks like problems with the front suspension, the front damper maybe, for the Woodard Racing Organisation's Mini, so that's coming in for a prolonged stop. And here is the Cuda Drinks Ginetta. Let's catch up now with Glenn Finn from the team.
Well, I've just been out for an hour and a half. Cracking start, lots of speed at the start. Our plan was to wind our lap times back to a reasonable time. We want to get to the end of the race. It's a new car for us. We have had some teething problems. Towards the end of the stint, we've got a bit of a fuel starvation problem, so the ducting to the differential coolers was damaged. So we've managed to replace it, and fingers crossed that should bring the diff temperature back down again. So Richard's out there now for the second stint. We're hoping to bring it home. As I say, that's our key priorities: get as much data as possible, learn the car, and not damage it.
Race leaders come in, so Phil Hansen, having done his stint, will hand back to Nigel Moore, who gets in for a second crack at this. More new Dunlop slick tyres going on, but it looks like a very slick change for the team. Oh, almost going down a bit too early. You've got to make sure you're within the minimum pit stop time here, so it's just being held there, and now he can go back into the lead of the race.
We're going to take a quick break now, but join us again in a few minutes' time for more GT racing highlights here at Donington. Welcome to the final part of the show as round 3 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship heads towards its climax. Chris Hartley is trackside to talk you through the action.
Well, we're into the final quarter of the race, and that is the Audi that has led from start to finish for Top Width Motorsports, albeit for the first 20 or 30 metres off the line, where the Ferrari got a slightly better start, but into turn 1 it led. Nigel Moore is back in the car, and they are well out front. Good to see the Woodard Racing Organisation Mini back on track after some problems with the car. Daniel Woodard now behind the wheel, and they're looking to pick up another strong finish in Class 5. Mike Moss steps into the class-leading BMW M3, and Rachel is speaking with his teammate.
Great seeing you back here at Britcar. Let's talk about your stint first of all. How was it out there?
Yeah, it was really, really hot in that car. I'm used to air conditioning, all the posh toys, and no, nothing there. It was really, really hot. I've got the cool vest on, and yeah, I feels like a sauna actually. Yeah. So it's hard work.
You obviously like racing here at Donington.
Yeah, I love Donington actually. Yeah, my favourite track I think, or one of them. Just everything comes together for me at Donington. Yeah, because I live an hour from here, so I'm here all the time practicing as well. I love Britcar as well, so it's good.
And what is it about Britcar that you enjoy so much?
Personally, me, it's a nice bunch of people, and yeah, it's a fun place to be, really. You see most of the teams, they've got most of their families pushing out wheels and giving them a hand, so yeah, it's a real family affair. That's what I like about it as well.
Leading Class 2 and indeed in second place overall is the FF Course Ferrari of Leighton Clark and Simon Atkinson, and they now look more comfortable in that position after a moment a few laps ago for Mike Wilds in the number 9 machine. Anthony Wilds is now back on board for his final stint, and we can hear with his dad, Mike Wilds.
Well, talk us through your last stint and how you're finding it here today.
The balance has gone out of the car a little bit. It's a bit oversteery at the moment, and I had a spin at the old hairpin which didn't help. It basically can be put down to driver ineptitude, basically. Okay. Just trying too hard when I knew the car was oversteery. Put the car into the old hairpin and it just started to slide. I tried to control it on the throttle and steering, but went onto the grass and then obviously spun, so I lost 12 seconds. Trying to get back onto the circuit. The grass doesn't quite have the same grip as the circuit, funnily enough.
No, it's funny that. Well, look, it's been frustrating so far, but hopefully it'll work for you guys.
Thank you. Always good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Oh, you old smoothie, Mike. Well, while we were listening to Mike, the Audi has been in for a top-up of fuel. Only 15 minutes to go in the race, but they have enough of an advantage here not to have to worry too much. So back out goes the Audi. Nigel Moore is still on board. He makes his way out through Hollywood and back down the infamous Craner curves here at Donington Park. There's the black Renault RS01, which has been slightly out of sync with the other lead groups in terms of its pit stops, and has now dropped a lap, so it's down to 4th position behind the Audi and the 2 Ferraris. There in 5th position and back into the Class 3 lead is the Ginetta of Century Motorsport after Steve Fressel dragged the car back into the class lead.
Steve, class leaders, yep. You look pretty exhausted. How did you find it out there?
Hot. Yeah. After the pit stop, we had a problem with the gear selector. I got round halfway around the circuit and stuck in 3rd. I couldn't do it, couldn't go up or down. Got it in. The boys, as usual, did a great job, found out the problem straight away. Then after that, I think we were about a lap down, well, we're over a lap down on the Aston. So it was just trying to do steady times and try and get him.
How is the gearbox issue now?
Fine, it's all sorted out. I think it was a fuse or a relay or something that popped out, so they've sorted that out. And Jacob's out. He's going to stroke it home, I hope.
Only 5 minutes left to go in the race, but the number 9 Ferrari has come into the pits. Now, we understand this is going to be a late driver change. You have a maximum duration that any one driver can stay in the cockpit for. And so Anthony Wilds has had to get out of the car and hand back to Dad Mike for the last couple of laps of the race. There's Graham Roberts making his Britcar debut, a front runner, a race winner in the Fun Cup Championship, getting his taste of the Track Talk Chevron now that the clutch issues have been sorted out. Back up into 6th place is the Z4. And there is the Aston Martin of Jody Fannin and Chris Murphy, 2nd in Class 3 and just outside of the top 6 now down in 7th place. In 8th position, it is the Moss Motorsport BMW, still leading Class 4. Have been into the pits with a puncture, but they are 3 laps clear of 9th place, which is the Synchro Motorsport Honda of James Ann Wheeler, which runs in a pretty impressive 9th overall. And in 10th place, the Porsche 911 of Ian Huard and Darrell Wilson on for another Class 2 podium, and that is going to put them very much into the overall championship picture. So just a couple more corners to go now for Nigel Moore, ably supported once again by Phil Hansen and the team at Top Width Motorsports. He makes his way around the Melbourne Loop for the final time. He's got the fastest lap of the race as well, and the extra point for that. And he's been stroking it home for the last couple of laps. Out of the final corner he comes, and it's 2 wins out of 3 now for Top Width Motorsports, for Nigel Moore and for Phil Hansen. They win by a full lap from the Ferrari 458 of Clark and Atkinson, who in turn are class winners and 42 seconds clear of the Wildses. 4th place to Holden and McKenna in the Renault, and a class win for Mathiasen and Fressel in 5th. So great work by Top Width Motorsports. There are the podium finishers, and it's Phil Hansen and Nigel Moore who get to crack open the champagne.
Managed to be able to put it up the inside of the Ferrari into the first corner. And from there on, first part of the race went pretty reasonably well, to be fair. Tyres started going off a little bit towards the mid to later part of the first stint, but managed to keep it under control. And no, we just fuel. I think fuel caught everyone out this weekend. But no, apart from that, it was a good start anyway. And then Phil.
Yeah, and then it was my stint. Yeah, just pretty standard, you know. Brought the car home at the end of the day, and that's the most important part. And just kept on going, really. The car was in a good condition. Like Nigel said, we were drinking a lot of fuel, but I think everyone's faced that challenge this weekend.
Really pleased. I only got a call 2 days ago to sort of say, was I available last minute? First time in the car. So we really didn't expect this at all. It's a great result, really happy with it. Great drive from Leighton, fantastic drive. I did my best and managed to hold the distance for my stint. So yeah, it was all round very good, really happy.
We knew that it was a long race, we knew we only had 3 sets of tyres, we knew we were going to have to do 3 or 4 pit stops, so I didn't want to shoot the tyres early on in the race. So just kept the gap nice and stable and brought it in for Simon, and then he took over and did a fantastic stint. It was a great result for us. When we're looking at qualifying this morning, we didn't think that this was going to be an option, finishing second overall. You know, you had the other GT3 cars that were quicker, but obviously they had their issues in the race, so didn't finish. So it was nice for us to end up here. The strategy played a lot in it, down to the fuel, tyres, the safety car helped us a lot. We managed to get an extra 25 litres of fuel into Simon's car after quite early on into his stint. So that gave us the time, bought us the time we needed to make sure that when I got in the car, I could finish the race off and just bring the car home and bring it in second.
The race was really tough. In my first stint, I had a great battle with the Aston Martin. After starting on pole, I missed the position to the Aston in the start, and we had a great fight the whole stint. But I didn't manage to get through. But my teammate Steve made a really good job to catch the Aston up again in his stint after some trouble with the gearbox. So yeah, it's been a really good day, and we are definitely loving it.
The team sort of told me we were more or less a lap down on the Aston Martin. They sent me a delta time to achieve to try and catch the car, and we just knuckled down and got on with it. Luckily, like we found out just now, the Aston's got a problem with its brakes, which obviously helped us a bit. But we caught him and got past him, and that was that really. That was us in the front, and we stayed there for the rest of the race.
This car is 7 podiums out of 7 races, and it's six wins. Yeah, it's quite consistent now. We're happy with the reliability that we've got in the car, and Dan's joined us this weekend, so it's nice to have him pushing me on. It's always good with 2 drivers, get someone to learn from and gain a bit of experience from Dan's knowledge.
We had a lift pump failure in the last race, so the guys at Woodrow Motorsport have worked tirelessly through Wednesday night to get the car here for like afternoon test session for Darren on the Thursday. Darren had a great time, and obviously we've done the race today, and it's actually gone really well. Bar we had 2 punches, which caused us a few issues and probably spoiled the result a little bit. But all in all, I think it was a fantastic meeting.
Yeah, it was a really good race today. Like Mike said, me and Mike didn't get any tests on Thursday because we sort of had work commitments. So we come here with no practicing at all. We set a good time in qualifying and set some good times in the race as well. Well, especially because sort of our car's quite underpowered compared to some of the other cars out there. So we're happy with the result. So yeah, it's good.
And a very big round of applause for Phil Hansen, who picks up the award for the Sunoco Driver of the Day. I know we go on about this, but he's only 16 years of age and only just in his first full season of car racing. So let's take a look at the updated championship points. Mathiasen and Fressel just 1 point clear of Hansen and Moore in the overall standings. Hewitt and Wilson's consistency puts them into third place.
So that brings the curtain down on the third round of the Dunlop Endurance Championship. Next time we'll be at Thruxton, the UK's fastest track. It promises to be a blast. We'll see you then.